Hi, this is Mr. Hutchings, and this is Mr. Hutchings History. Today's episode is 3.1 Empires Expand from 1450 to 1750 of the AP World History program. Today, we're going to focus on the skill of contextualization and causation, and our themes will be governance, technology and innovation, cultural developments and interactions, economic systems, and social interactions and organization. That's right, this will be a big one. What men call sovereignty is a worldly strife in constant war. Worship of God is the highest throne, the happiest of all estates. These are the words of Suleiman the Magnificent, ruler of the Ottoman Empire at its height. He prayed as a servant of God, but he ruled as a master of a vast army. How can power be both sacred and violent? How do rulers convince their subjects that authority comes from heaven while their armies conquer on earth? An answer could be that rulers often used religion and ritual to sanctify power, building mosques, commissioning art, or claiming divine blessing, while also maintaining armies and bureaucracies to enforce that authority. Faith and force worked together. From 1450 to 1750, new empires across Eurasia, Ottoman, Safavid, Mughal, Russian, Ming, and Qing, used gunpowder weapons, centralized governments, and religious legitimacy to build vast multi ethnic states. These became known as the Gunpowder Empires. Let's see the world that allowed empires to grow. To understand why these empires expanded, we use the skill of contextualization, placing developments in their broader setting. After centuries of Mongol rule, Afro Eurasia was connected by trade, religion, and technology. Gunpowder, invented in China, had spread westward through these same trade routes, revolutionizing warfare. By 1450, the Mongol Khanates had collapsed, leaving power vacuums from Central Asia to the Middle East. Why might the collapse of one empire create opportunity for another? It's possible that when one power falls, it leaves behind administrative structures, trade routes, and armed populations ready for new leadership. Ambitious rulers can fill that void by using new technology, like firearms, to claim legitimacy and territory. This moment set the stage for ambitious conquerors armed with cannon and muskets to rise. The fall of the Mongols did not end empire, it created the conditions for a new kind of empire to emerge. Let's begin with Russia and their expansion and adaptation. In the north, Russia grew from a fragmented principality into a continental empire. Under Ivan IV, the Terrible, crowned Tsar in 1547, Russia expanded eastward into the Volga region and across the Ural Mountains toward Siberia. His artillery crushed the Tartar Khanates of Kazan and Astrakhan, securing control of the Volga River and opening trade routes linking Russia to Central Asia, the Persian world, and the Ottoman Empire. The Tsar granted the Stroganov family, who were wealthy landowners, permission to hire Cossacks, independent frontier warriors known for their skill in horseback fighting and survival. These Cossacks led expeditions deep into Siberia, defeating local tribes and claiming territory for Moscow. By the early 1600s, Russian settlements stretched to the Pacific coast, and later, explorers even crossed the Bering Sea into Alaska. Are the Cossacks more like conquerors or settlers? Well, they were a bit of both. As conquerors, they secured territory with violence and allegiance to Moscow. As settlers, they built forts, villages, and trade routes that turned vast frontiers into Russian space. Here we see causation and continuity, military expansion causing territorial growth, but the persistence of old steppe traditions of frontier warfare. And through the theme of governance, we see how Russia's rulers used Orthodox Christianity and centralized administration to integrate diverse peoples into a single state. Let's move to East Asia, where there we find stability and isolation. In East Asia, the Ming and Qing dynasties of China built and defended powerful land based empires. The Ming dynasty, after expelling the Mongols in 1368, rebuilt China's strength, repairing the Great Wall, restoring the civil service examination system, and sponsoring the voyages of Zheng He. Yet by the 1600s, the dynasty was weakened by corrupt officials, heavy taxes, and military neglect, which fueled peasant uprisings like the Li Shijing Rebellion. These internal crises opened the way for the Manchus to seize power and establish the Qing dynasty. In 1644, the Manchus, a semi nomadic people from Manchuria in Northeast Asia, crossed the Great Wall and seized Beijing. Originally invited by Ming generals to help suppress a peasant revolt, the Manchus instead took advantage of the chaos, captured the capital, and established the Qing dynasty, which would rule China until 1911. Emperor Kangxi, from 1661 to 1722, expanded into Taiwan, Mongolia, and Central Asia, and established a protectorate over Tibet. His successor, Emperor Qianlong, from 1736 to 1796, continued to enlarge the empire, annexing Xinjiang and installing a loyal Dalai Lama in Tibet. How could the Manchus be both foreign rulers and legitimate emperors? It's because they adopted Confucian bureaucracy and presented themselves as guardians of Chinese tradition. By upholding established institutions, they earned the support of scholars and officials. Their legitimacy came from continuity with past dynasties, not rebellion against them. By the late 18th century, Emperor Qianlong's costly military campaigns from Tibet and Xinjiang to Burma and Vietnam had drained the imperial treasury. The enormous expense of maintaining garrisons and funding distant wars left China financially strained. Soon after, the White Lotus Rebellion erupted, revealing how the empire's outward glory and expansion concealed deep economic weaknesses and popular unrest. Under the themes of governance and technology and innovation, the Ming and Qing exemplify how states use infrastructure and bureaucracy to maintain control, even while facing the limits of overextension. Let's move to the Islamic gunpowder empires. First, we have the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire began with small Turkic principalities in Anatolia and became a world power. In 1453, Mehmed II, known as the Conqueror, laid siege to Constantinople with one of the most formidable armies of the age. For 7 weeks, his forces bombarded the city's massive Theodosian walls with enormous bronze cannons, while Ottoman ships, dragged overland on greased logs, bypassed the harbor defenses of the Golden Horn. When the walls finally gave way, the Byzantine Empire collapsed after more than 1,000 years. The city, renamed Istanbul, became the Ottoman capital and a vibrant crossroads of Europe and Asia. Under Suleiman I, from 1520 to 1566, the empire reached its peak. His armies conquered Hungary, besieged Vienna, and dominated the eastern Mediterranean Sea. Suleiman the Magnificent not only expanded the empire, but also reformed its legal code, blending Islamic law with imperial decrees to create a fair system of justice. He commissioned grand architectural works like the Suleiman Mosque, designed by the great architect Sinan, and made Istanbul a center of art, calligraphy, and scholarship, attracting poets, jurists, and scientists from across the Islamic world. Why does the fall of Constantinople matter beyond the Ottomans themselves? Its capture shifted trade and power. With overland routes under Ottoman control, Europeans turned toward the seas, beginning the era of maritime exploration. One empire's success triggered another empire's innovation, an example of causation in world history. The Ottomans fused religion and governance. The Sultan claimed both political power and spiritual authority as caliph, embodying the theme of cultural developments and interactions. Faith as a tool of statecraft. And now to the Safavid Empire. To the east, the Safavid Empire rose in Persia under Ismail I, a young warrior leader who united rival Turkic tribes known as the Kizilbash. After seizing Tabriz in 1501, he proclaimed himself Shah and declared Shia Islam the state religion to distinguish his rule from the neighboring Sunni Ottomans. Through force, conversion campaigns, and the loyalty of the Kizilbash, Ismail forged a new Persian identity centered on Shia faith and kingship. His choice created a deep divide with the Sunni Ottomans, establishing rival Islamic identities. Under Shah Abbas I, from 1588 to 1629, the empire reached its height. Shah Abbas I modernized the Safavid army with European artillery and European advisors, expanded trade ties with the English and Dutch, and transformed Isfahan, his new capital, into one of the world's most beautiful cities. Centered on the vast Nakas Isfahan Square, Isfahan became a showpiece of Persian architecture filled with mosques, palaces, gardens, and tiled bazaars that reflected the empire's wealth and artistic brilliance. Can religion unite an empire and divide a region at the same time? The answer is yes. Shared faith can unify diverse groups under one ruler, but it can also alienate neighboring states or minorities. For the Safavids, Shia Islam strengthened internal unity but fueled conflict with Sunni empires. In the theme of governance, Abbas's reforms show how political centralization depends on religious legitimacy. In cultural developments and interactions, Safavid art and architecture demonstrate how culture expresses state power. On to the Mughal Empire. In India, Babur, a descendant of Tamerlane, founded the Mughal Empire in the 1520s. His grandson Akbar transformed it into one of the richest and most tolerant empires in history. Emperor Akbar the Great blended Persian, Islamic, and Indian traditions to strengthen his vast empire. He built a centralized bureaucracy led by officials loyal to the throne rather than loyal to local clans, creating stability across diverse provinces. Akbar promoted religious tolerance. He abolished the jizya tax on non Muslims. He married Hindu princesses and welcomed Catholic Jesuit missionaries, Muslim scholars, and Hindu thinkers to debates at his court in Fatehpur Sikri. Through these interfaith dialogues, he sought a common ethical system he called the divine faith, Dini Ilahi, symbolizing his vision of unity across religions. Why might tolerance itself be a form of political strength? It's because tolerance builds loyalty. By allowing Hindus, Muslims, and others to serve in government, Akbar reduced rebellion and created stability across India's diverse population. Inclusivity became a tool of governance. Economically, Mughal India thrived. Textiles, spices, and gemstones flowed through Indian Ocean trade routes, exchanged for silver from Europe and East Asia. This reflects the economic system's theme, how global demand linked distant markets. But later rulers, especially Aurangzeb, I'm going to say that wrong, I believe it's Aurangzeb, from 1658 to 1707, reversed Akbar's inclusivity, reinstating the jizya tax and waging costly wars. How did Aurangzeb's religious policy affect his empire? It divided his subjects and drained resources, leading to rebellion. Religious rigidity weakened the unity Akbar had built, an example of continuity and change within a single dynasty. By the 1700s, all three Islamic gunpowder empires faced decline. What patterns linked their fall? Each relied heavily on land based taxation and military expansion. None adapted to the rise of European maritime trade or industrial innovation. Their economies stagnated as Europe's grew. After Suleiman's death, the Ottoman Empire faced weak sultans, court corruption, and growing military stagnation. The once feared Janissaries resisted reform, and in 1571, a combined Christian fleet defeated the Ottomans at the Battle of Lepanto, ending the naval dominance of the Ottomans in the Mediterranean. Over time, trade shifted to Atlantic routes, draining Ottoman wealth and power. The Safavid Empire unraveled in the early 1700s after a series of succession crises, tribal rebellions, and Afghan invasions. The capital, Isfahan, was sacked in 1722, marking the empire's collapse and the end of Persia's stability until later dynasties restored the order. The Mughal Empire, once rich and tolerant, fragmented under weak successors after Aurangzeb's death in 1707. His long wars had exhausted the treasury, and harsh religious policies fueled regional revolts by the Marathas and Sikhs. As Mughal authority declined, the British East India Company exploited the chaos, gradually taking control of India by the mid 1700s. In contrast, Russia modernized its army, navy, and bureaucracy under rulers like Peter the Great, who built St. Petersburg as a window to the West and reorganized government along European lines. By adopting Western technology, shipbuilding, and administrative reforms, Russia survived as an independent, expansionist empire while others fell behind. Through the themes of technology and innovation and economic systems, we see a global turning point. Maritime powers such as Britain, Portugal, and the Netherlands harnessed new naval technology and trade networks, allowing sea based empires to surpass the traditional land empires of Eurasia. Let's pause to apply the AP skills we've been modeling. Contextualization. The gunpowder empires arose from the collapse of Mongol rule and the spread of firearms. Causation. Innovations in gunpowder and governance caused rapid territorial expansion. Comparison. Each empire legitimized power differently. Ottomans through Sunni Islam, Safavids through Shia Islams, and Mughals through tolerance. Continuity and change. The ideals of centralized authority persisted even as global power shifted to maritime states. Which of these skills helps you explain, not just describe, how history changes? It could be causation and continuity and change, which move us beyond memorization. They help us see that events are connected and that patterns repeat with variation. The story of the gunpowder empires is the story of human ambition. Technology provided the means, belief provided the justification, administration provided the structure. But each empire eventually met the same truth: power must adapt or fade. Is empire an achievement or a warning? It's both. Empires reveal humanity's capacity to organize and create, but also its tendency towards overreach. Their rise and fall reminds us that history's greatest powers are never permanent. Until next time, stay curious, History matters.